Welcome, everybody, to Advisory and Consulting in the Age of AI by myself, Hector Garcia, CPA, and my colleague, Ed Kless from the Meta Consulting Academy. Table of contents, we'll briefly introduce ourselves just in case you guys don't know who I am or Ed is, just give you a little bit of context. Then we're going to talk about what is an advisor bot. And I'm using that with air quotes because that's not a word that existed prior to 2023 or even something that people would even think about, but it's something that we do need to think about because there is a reality. There is an advisor bot out there that wants to take our advisory and consulting work and will take what we know today as advisory and consulting work, and we need to figure out how we adapt and compete with the proverbial advisor bot. Then we're going to talk about where humans are different or why humans are different. And it really isn't the quality of the questions. I don't want to give away sort of the context there, but that's what we're going to be discussing. Then we're going to talk about quickly as AI being a feature and not a product. Currently, AI is a product, but it's going to become a feature, and that's going to fundamentally change the way we look at computing, software, accounting tools, etc. Then we're going to discuss about the advisor's role in general. So we'll kind of give some background in terms of like what are the fundamental things that Ed and I both know and understand as our role as advisors, not just accountants or accounting professionals, but also advisors. So we'll discuss that and kind of discuss contextually how that might change with the proliferation of AI. Then we're going to discuss the continuous audit, which is going to be the most fundamental shift to our profession, where the work that we used to do will be done by computers and bots, and we're going to still be involved, but in a much different, significantly different way. Okay. Then we're going to discuss what does meta mean to us, and not meta Facebook, but meta, just the concept, the word, and discuss how that we think that the word meta changes the language and the outlook on how we behave moving forward. And Ed, the founder of the Meta Consulting Academy, will kind of pick his brain really quick about what was he thinking about building that and why that exists and why that's important. And then we'll leave it open for Q&A. So we're estimating about an hour and a half. We'll do about an hour of podcast style conversation. Ed and I with some live slides to kind of guide us through the conversation. We did organize the structure of the conversation, but we'll try to get a little bit philosophical and more podcasty conversational as much as we can, but we're going to follow this structure. And then if there's any open Q&A, if anybody wants to be brought up, video, voice, whatever, you could be part of the conversation too. Both Ed and I are learning about AI and the future of accounting as much as you guys are as well. Okay, but myself really quick, I'm a CPA based out of Florida. I've been a CPA for 10 years. Hard to believe how quick time flies. Before I was a CPA, I founded Quick Bookkeeping, which is the accounting firm that I've been building for 16 years. Earlier this year, I stepped out of most of the day-to-day operations. I have two partners that do all the taxes and bookkeeping work, and I basically just sit on the board, and I have shifted my attention, 100% of my attention, to two things that I'm passionate about. One is experimenting, exercising the creative side of my brain to experiment with different things, different tools, different concepts, different philosophies, different ideas to see what my role is going to be to help the profession move forward. And with that, I founded a company called Reframe Events, and we're putting together educational events of all sorts, big, small, to bring transformative education to the accounting industry. But what I feel has helped me transform my practice and help me evolve, outside of having to do the day-to-day work. And I also co-founded, partially by accident, an app called Right Tool for QuickBooks, which is actually doing really, really well. So my time is currently divided between my YouTube channel, education events, and consulting with the developers of Right Tool to develop super cool app. The links to that should be in the description if you click on any of those active hyperlinks. Ed, I'll give the floor to you so you can introduce yourself.
All right. Thanks so much, Hector. And I'm just really thrilled to be here today and talk and share some of this material with your audience. Really, really appreciate that. I my why is up on the screen. I believe that entrepreneurs continue the work of creation. And I don't care if you think of creation as 6 days in a garden and then a day of rest, or an explosion out of nothingness 13.7 billion years ago, or turtles all the way down, whatever you got. I really believe that entrepreneurs continue that work, and everything that we see before us, well, the books behind me, the microphone, the fact that you're looking at a computer, the wonderful camera that I'm looking into to share this presentation with. All of these were created by people who wanted to improve the human condition and improve human flourishing. And that's what the purpose of business is. So the meta consulting thing, I want to talk a little bit about this. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it later in the webinar, Hector, but it is a pronounced title, meta consultant, and that is because I worked for Sage for almost 21 years. And in my 21 years there, almost all of my time was spent helping our business partners, whether they be in the Sage Accountants Network or whether it was in our mid-market who are reselling and implementing our products, helping them make their businesses better and working on them and their business model. And that was really two things. One, pricing, which we're not going to talk much about today. But then the other thing was just helping them become better consultants. And about 2.5 years ago, it was right after COVID, I realized that what I was doing is I was consulting to people who do consulting. And if you metadata, right? Metadata is data about the data. So I'm consulting to people about consulting. So that's hence the whole idea of meta consulting. But it even goes beyond that. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Take that, Hector.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the AdvisorBot. And one thing that you grown to love about my webinars, and maybe some people have grown to hate this about our webinars, is that everything happens on the screen impromptu. So what I'm going to show you is something I haven't primed from the perspective of testing it to see how it works. So I'm going to show you live what it would be like for a business owner firing their accountant and saying, you know what, ChatGPT will now become my accountant. And I'm going to just be more specific towards the concept of advisory and consulting, not so much like ChatGPT, or the concept of ChatGPT, go do my tax returns. That's not what we're doing. And that's not what we're trying to do. It's more like ChatGPT, give me advice, consult with me on how to make my business better. So let me switch over to ChatGPT. And I'll show you really quick how I started. And Ed, is my sound okay? I just want to make sure somebody commented that you were much louder than I am. Do you feel?
I think they would just like my voice better, Hector. I don't know if it was the
sound. Oh, that's a different issue, right? That we can't fix.
But I was. In fact, I was just typing a response. I minored in musical theater. What can I tell you?
That's true. Ed's actually a really good singer, but we won't get into that. Okay. So this is how I kind of primed ChatGPT, and again, put yourself in the eyes or the position of a business owner. And I just told ChatGPT this, and prompts are really important. We're going to get discussion about prompts, or maybe we can discuss a little bit about prompting and what does prompting mean in the age of better questions and that sort of thing. But I asked ChatGPT, you're an advisor bot. Your job is to fill in the role as my accountant, business advisor, and primary growth consultant. That's what we do, right? That's what we try to do anyway. I had an accountant last year, but I can no longer afford their fees. So I am using ChatGPT to guide me in my business decisions moving forward. For context, my name is Hector. I'm the CEO of a small construction company in Miami called Quality Build Construction. Today is January 1st, 2026, and I would like to start making the best possible decisions for my business. I am going to send you some key reports from my QuickBooks file for the last 2 years, 2024 and 2025, so you can help me. Are you ready? Right? So ChatGPT goes, let's get started. Now, I want to add some additional context. AI is so cheap, right? And you can't beat zero. I am actually in my personal account, not my business account, which is free. I am literally on the free version of ChatGPT. There's absolutely zero friction for a small business owner to get this process started. Okay. And I know some of you accountants that are going to watch me put this video up in YouTube and go, why are you giving the small business owners ideas that they can fire their accountant and use ChatGPT? Well, I don't know who said this, and Ed, maybe you can complement this, but our job should be to disrupt ourselves. Like we cannot wait for somebody else to disrupt us. Like if you are gonna be among what's it called, cannibals, it's better to dine with friends or something like that.
Yes,
So
if you're going
you,
to dine with cannibals, best to do it among friends. And the reality is
yeah,
what kills you does not look like you.
I think that's the most important thing. So what might destroy our industry, it could be AI or it could be some other industry that leverage AI. It really doesn't matter. What matters the most is that if all of us want to be relevant for the next 20 to 30 years, and I'm 43 years old, so I want to be relevant for the next 20 to 30 years, you want to almost figure out ways to replace you. Like if you figure out a way to replace you, replace your firm and replace your services, then you have basically the infrastructure to like evolve your business and transform your business. Because if you know what this change that you're not welcoming is going to look like, you can be on the driver's seat of that change. So anyway, I am going to take a P&L that I exported from a QuickBooks file, and just to show you on the screen, Ed, can you just making sure that you can in fact see it, just to add
I
some
do.
context.
Yep.
Yep. So here's a P&L 25, 24. This is a sample file from QuickBooks. So I'm not going to use a real client file, but it's like the type of stuff that you would generate from a QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks desktop file, and also a balance sheet. Okay. So just for context, this is a normal report that people would just export from QuickBooks. And I get it. You probably need to be an accountant to have these reports be accurate, which is a baseline for advisory. And that's another part of the conversation that we could have in a whole different webinar, which is like the work behind the work before you become an advisor. But as I told ChatGPT, is I used to have an accountant to help me build this. Now I'm going to leverage ChatGPT to give me advice moving forward. So I'm literally just drag and dropping a P&L and balance sheet. I'm going to hit send, and I'm just going to let ChatGPT surprise me with whatever information it's going to give me. I didn't say what to look for. I didn't say what to give me. I didn't say what my concerns were. I just copy and pasted or just uploaded a P&L and a balance sheet. So this starts doing the work that maybe it's a little bit obvious, but in it's the fundamental work. It's like we spend maybe at 30 to 45 minutes every month or every quarter just walking people through their financial statement. So it starts doing basic stuff like, hey, there's an increase in your total bank account, primarily due to one specific bank account, that's going up. Accounts receivable went up, indicating the more outstanding payments at the end of 2025. Current assets increased by this, mainly due to retentions receivable. So it's just essentially just like converting the codified financial statements into concepts that any layman, any business owner would understand. So total assets went by this, reaching this, and then it goes through the liabilities, your payroll liabilities, all the long term. So I just did a very simple explanation of what changed in your balance sheet. Second part here is it does a P&L analysis. So it says this particular part of the income went up by 65,000. COGS have decreased, gross profits increased, and this is where we can start asking interesting questions. Total expenses went up. Net income, in this case, went up. And then there's some a real summary saying the profitability went up substantially due to better income and better expense management, cost of goods sold, that sort of thing. And then it goes through recommendations. This is the stuff that we're supposed to get paid for, right? This is the stuff that humans were the ones that were the only holders of this information. Like this used to be the ace up our sleeve. This is why people pay us the big bucks, so we can make them recommendations, right? So recommendation is monitor and manage your cash flow by looking at your bank accounts. Pretty obvious stuff, but you can get deeper into this. So we'll discuss that in a second. Then, set aside more money for savings, for unforeseen expenses and opportunities, implement stronger collection process, review and control operating expenses. With improved profitability, consider investing in growth opportunities such as marketing, technology updates, etc., and continue reducing long-term liabilities to strengthen your balance sheet. Okay, so here it tells me, would you like us to dive deep into any specific areas? And what's really neat is I can literally, and this is why this stuff is going to get so easy for small business owners to work with. And I'm showing you this in ChatGPT, and we'll discuss a little bit later, where you will no longer be using a ChatGPT to do this. This will actually be built into your Sage products, into your Xero products, into your QuickBooks products. So the accounting software is going to proactively be pushing this information and these suggestions out to the small business owners. But what's really cool is, for example, we get a specific area that I like. So this part I found pretty interesting. All I have to do is highlight it, click on this little button that says reply, and then I say, tell me more, or dive deeper. I could say any of these, press enter, and then it basically contextually grabs a little piece of the sort of the general assessment it made, and now it goes deep into like, how do you do strategies for stronger collection policies? So we have credit assessment and terms, and it goes through, discussing a workflow for assessing customers' credit worthiness, credit terms, prompt invoicing, detailed invoices. Right? I always say that customers will always find every excuse not to pay you. So do not be vague in the invoice. So to give them excuses to say, oh, this is not clear enough, I'm not going to pay you yet. So it's just saying the type of stuff that I've been telling my customers for years. Be very detailed on your invoice so your customer doesn't have a way to act confused and delay the process of paying you. Okay. So we have multiple payment options, give customer flexibility on payments, early payment discount. I mean, this goes pretty deep. But what's really, really awesome about this is you can dive even deeper. So you can go assess credit worthiness, and we can click here and say, what tools, apps are out there to help with this? Okay. And the thing, ChatGPT might go to the internet and go look for some tools or apps, or it'll use its general database. It goes, okay, take a look at Experian Business, take a look at Dun & Bradstreet, take a look at Equifax Business, take a look at this thing called Nav, take a look at CreditSafe, take a look at Cortera, integrated accounting and CRM software. So like does Credit Karma and Experian connect to QuickBooks, so you can use QuickBooks? Does it connect to Xero, Soho CRM? So it starts really going into like real deep stuff. And imagine, how much work as consultants we've had to do. One, to determine the underlying problem. Two, to figure out if that's something that the customer even wants to explore deeper. And three, then going out to Google and doing a bunch of research to figure out, to then come back with maybe not a recommendation, with a list of options, right? So this is what we observe. These are the things that are out there. And do you want to engage us to implement any of these systems? But think about that. To get to the point where we determine that this stuff is important, this might take years of relationship building. It might take years of being their accountant. It might take months of conversations and kind of walking the customer through their thinking and that sort of thing. Whereas in this case, the customer self-navigated through their own advisory. And I want to set that as a backdrop. Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form suggesting that this is how small businesses should get their advice moving forward. What I am proposing to you is that you will blink and customers will start seeing this as the standard. And if they feel this is the standard, where do we stand? So Ed, any thoughts on this?
A couple things, and we have had a couple questions and several on the same topic, Hector. So I certainly think we need to deal with this. And people are concerned with the security issues around uploading information into ChatGPT. It's my understanding, Hector, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're far more the expert on this. But the unpaid version of ChatGPT, yeah, you got to be careful what you upload, because it will use the data that you upload to train its future models, and there's potential security issues there. However, with the paid model, you can either tell it not to, or by default, it's off, that it won't use your data to train the future models. Do I have that right, Hector?
That is accurate. And I did not personally audit OpenAI's IT systems, so I cannot vouch for or guarantee that OpenAI is not using any of this data. But one thing I could tell you is ChatGPT is so mature at this point that they no longer require all their users to be training the data. So now even the free version has this little checkbox. And by the way, you are opted in immediately. You have to manually opt out, and you have to go through the navigation to do that. But if you uncheck improve the model for everyone, then none of the stuff that you're using is used to train the model. Okay, that's first part of the answer. Second part of the answer, for the time being, until we're 100% sure how this works, I would never put the real company name. I would maybe change the name of the companies or the business owners in the balance sheet. I would omit any social security information. Like I would try to jumble the data a little bit when you start experimenting with these tools. As a matter of fact, I've been searching of a tool that could jumble that could jumble data for this purpose, and I haven't found one. So if any of you want to start an app company that can take a list of sales, a GL report, a P&L and balance sheet, and you can tell it, hey, can you jumble this, jumble that? That way, when you upload it to any of the AI systems, it's pre-masked per se, or pre-obfuscated. What's the word? Obfuscated?
Obfuscation, but yeah. But Hector, I think we test this out, but I think it might be even in a custom ChatGPT. There are plugins of it already that say, if you think this is a social security number or a credit card number, delete it out. Because I know that there are systems that do that already, and they're using AI to do it.
Right. The context that I was setting is because we don't know for sure, because we can't guarantee it for sure, because I can't tell you, just because OpenAI says that they don't use it, how do we really know? So I'm just saying, if you want to be super extra safe, as you experiment with these things, you should probably delete that sensitive information prior. Okay. Okay. So let's get back into the slides to guide us through the conversation. So that is the backdrop. It's both exciting and scary for a lot of us that this is at the fingertips of the average small business owner, and this might become the new norm. Now, why or how humans are different? Well, first of all, what ChatGPT is really good at, as you can tell, is giving you answers, right? Now, I had to give it a really good question, and you saw with my prompt, it was a good prompt, right? I explained the context. I used to have an accountant. You, ChatGPT, are my new accountant. This is the name of my company. I'm a CEO. These are the financial statements from year 1 to year 2, et cetera, et cetera. And I gave it a question, and it's really good at giving me answers. But what ChatGPT, and I'm going to put this in quotes, is not yet that good at, is at asking the question, right? Like we, the humans, are still the oracle. We still ask the questions. Now, the average CEO that might not even know as much as maybe we do about better accounting processes, about growing a business, et cetera, they're going to ask very basic questions like, help me grow my business. And then ChatGPT will start giving bullet points of different options. But as you get better at asking ChatGPT questions, the answers just get better. They get contextually better. So the power that we have today is in drafting those questions or helping our clients draft those questions. So can we coexist with AI as the advisor and us as the controller, the monitor, the guide through navigating the AI? Yes, with questions. Ed, I know you're a questionologist. Take it away.
This is exactly where this idea of meta consulting comes in, because you can even ask ChatGPT to give you questions to ask. It will do that. Like you can type in and say, what other questions should I be asking about this particular business? If you want to do that, Hector, great. But what ChatGPT cannot do, and yet maybe, is discern which are the best questions to be asking. So that's where the idea of meta comes in. So let me take a step back. I've heard a great distinction about a year and a half ago about the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist. And data analysts are people who get answers from the data. Data scientists are people who come up with new questions to ask the data. And there's a process of discernment that happens to determine what are the more important questions. So look at this. This is a huge, incredible list of questions that ChatGPT is just coming up with. But can it discern in looking at them which are the right questions to be asking in this particular situation? And correct me if I'm wrong, Hector, I don't, it's not there yet. I mean, you could ask it which are the most important, and it might take a stab at it, But that's another trust issue. I don't know if I would be willing to say, hey, yeah, I would trust what it comes back to as the most important, because there's still context missing that it doesn't know about. And this is where we humans come in. So
yeah. But my take on this is the favorite people I like speaking to. Okay, people like Ed, people like Ron Baker, my two business partners, my wife, my kids, my brother, my dad. The favorite people for me to speak to is the people that read between the lines, that know the context behind the question, that can read my face and they know what nervousness looks like for me, what does anxiety looks like for me, what does wonder and creativity and curiosity look like for me in my face. And based on how I ask the question, they give me the answer in the direction that I was looking for. That stuff, AI is not there yet. So it's not just knowing the question and the exact words and contextually, is that the human to human contact sometimes understands that there's a question behind the question. Many times when a business owner asks their accountant, how can I decrease my profits? Well, are they really asking to decrease their profits, or are they really asking to reduce their tax burden? So sometimes the question is not what really they want to get to. Because if they ask, can you decrease my tax burden? Then I would go, hey, do you want to decrease the overall dollar amount, the check you write to the IRS? Or do you want to decrease the proportion percentually based on how much you make that you pay to the IRS, right? Or do you want to reduce or increase the net amount post-tax that you put in your pocket? Those three questions are very different, because if somebody says, no, Hector, I don't care about anything else, just reduce the check that I write to the IRS, then my answer is simple. Next customer that calls you, just tell them no. Stop taking customers, reduce your revenue, and magically the check you write to the IRS will be lower, right? But if the question is different, the question is, no, help me reduce the percentage based on what I make. Then I discuss things like depreciation and deferred revenue, and then we discuss about, do you want to pay the tax now? Do you pay the tax later? Do you think in 20 years your tax rate will be higher than now? Is it worth it to pay it now or pay it in the future? All sorts of nuances. And if somebody says, no, Hector, I want to take home more net, I don't care how much I pay to the IRS, as long as I take home more so I can enjoy more, then I don't care about tax reduction strategies. Then I care about increasing sales and increasing profitability. So sometimes people don't even know how to answer the right questions. And a good advisor and a good consultant can discern what is the question behind the question and guide people through their thinking. And that's really how I think humans stand out. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is a great feed in for something that you have up on the slide there, and this how versus what matters in the work of Peter Block. And one of the things that Peter Block has instilled in me over the years, he's my now 20 plus year mentor. I've had the privilege of interviewing him a couple times on the Soul of Enterprise, is that oftentimes people come to advisors and consultants with what he calls how-based questions. How do you do it? How long will it take? How much does it cost? How do you get those people to change? How do you measure it? How have other people done it successfully? And he says the problem is not so much that those questions are asked, is that they are asked and then answered by the advisor or consultant too early in the process. And what we really need to do is turn around and shift the question to what he calls a what matters question. So let me give you an example. And I think this is a great one because there's so many different ways to go, especially people who have in the past billed by the hour. When they are asked by a prospect or customer, how long is this going to take? Hector, I have actually heard accountants answer that question with a dollar amount. Right? So they'll say, like, how long will that take? And they'll say $1,000. Because what they've done is say, well, I'm $200 an hour. It's going to take me 5 hours to do that. It's $1,000. But oftentimes that's not what the customer was asking. They weren't asking a pricing question. They actually were asking a question of duration. That what they were asking is, how soon can I get this? How quickly can you get this to me? And but even more important, what Block would say is the more important question is, well, what is it doesn't really matter how long it's going to take. What matters is, are you committed to doing something with it once you get it? Assume you get it, then what? And that's what a real consultant and advisor is going to be able to do. And this is, again, to tie into the demo earlier, ChatGPT is not going to be able to make that discernment. And that's where we humans come back in.
And I think just to add to that, why are we compelled to answer how long would this take with a dollar amount? And this is probably a whole different webinar, but it's because we have accustomed customers to think of the work of an accountant as a factor of time times an hourly rate. So we're so used to people being concerned with cost without saying the word cost, price, or hourly rate, saying time. And then we feel that it's a shortcut to just say the number up front, get that conversation out of the way, and then move forward. So sometimes it's true. Sometimes it is a pricing question. But I think the point that Ed is making here is that we have to, but not just answer the right question, but we also kind of have to figure out what's the ethos behind it. So, hey, before I even give you a duration answer, let me ask you a question. Do you need this ASAP? Is this what level of priority this has? Because based on your priority, I can take a look at my resources and how much I can reprioritize my resources and get this for you when you need it. So instead of asking me how long it's going to take, tell me when you need it by. Because if I put 4 people on this versus 1 person on this, if you give me all accesses to all your systems, all user IDs and passwords, et cetera, I could probably get everything done quicker than the traditional route of you sending me the paper, me scanning the paper and asking you if this is the right paper, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes even a duration question has so much nuance that it requires us to kind of massage the question and go back to the client and say, did you mean this? Did you mean this? Something that ChatGPT is just not there to ask yet. Well, ChatGPT is very good at answering direct questions, but it's not that good at answering indirect questions.
And I would say, even, Hector, yes, and to your answer, yes, and I believe that the more important question when being asked a question about how long is this going to take is at least temporarily pivoting off of, you asked this question, it's clearly important to you. Why is it so important to you that you know this answer? Why is it so? Because if they come back and say, I got to get a bank loan, and if I don't get this bank loan by this date, I'm out of business. Okay.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's safe for us to intellectually assume that everybody wants everything as soon as possible. I mean, that's a super safe assumption to make. But as soon as possible means different things to different people.
Yeah, right. One of the things I like to talk about is ASAP. You should never write as ASAP to someone in an email, because it means the exact opposite to sender and receiver. If I'm sending it to you, I say I need this ASAP. I'm emphasizing the soon. If I'm in the receiving end, if somebody says ASAP, I emphasize the possible, which is
right.
Not until next Thursday.
Right. Yeah, we're always going to leverage the words to work in our favor. And the current political climate just explains that so well, where we'll take one person's word and depending on what side of the aisle we're in, that word means this to me, and somebody else listening to the exact same words, it means the exact opposite. It's just incredible. So this is human nature. And like AI, even though AI is trained on human nature, the unpredictability of a human's reaction to anything is something that ChatGPT can never do. And in many ways, some people maybe want that. Maybe I want to robotize my world. Maybe I no longer want unpredictability. Maybe I love being bored with the predictable stuff that AI can give. But like, is that real life? And I think most people won't. And we're going to go through a very interesting period where all of business will behave identical in the next 2 to 3 years, because they're all going to read the same AI-generated blog articles. They're all going to take the exact same advice from ChatGPT. All the accountants and advisors are going to choose ChatGPT to build frameworks to give advice. And if it's those people that think way outside the box, that exert human creativity and swim against the current, the ones that are really going to stand out.
Yeah, I've heard this said a lot of ways going back over a year now, Hector. It says like AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI is going to take your job. So,
yeah, someone that's human and creative,
yes,
that knows how to use AI and use it to help them boost their humanness and their creativity will take your job. Not someone that acts as if they are a bot to the chatbot.
No.
Right? Okay, let's move on to, okay, so we discussed this in the context of ChatGPT. Let's talk about software versus AI. And this is one of the very interesting things is that I think AI is scary for a lot of people because of Hollywood, right? Because how artificial intelligence has been pinned against the apocalypse and computers taking over and machines killing humans, et cetera, et cetera. But AI is software. I don't understand how people see this as two different things. Okay, I heard somebody say that AI is a bunch of nested if statements. And if you're an Excel nerd, you know what that means, right? If you're not an Excel nerd, sorry, go look it up. Nested if statement and have fun, okay? So software and AI are the same thing. The difference is that software historically always had a button and you press that button and there was a completely expected behavior after you press that button, okay? AI is fundamentally changing the interface. AI can hear you, like you can enable with the mic, it could transcribe what you say with your voice and put it in text. And it could also take a whole bunch of potentially gibberish you're putting in the computer, converting that into the most approximately coherent sentence, and then reacting to that sentence and giving you an answer. It's still just software. It's still just ones and zeros being processed in the background, but it's currently being seen by most people as two separate things, two separate products. So you have software and you have the AI. And it's my belief that just like maybe 15 years ago, the Internet of Things was the thing where your toaster will have Wi-Fi, and there is toasters with Wi-Fi, and your oven will have Wi-Fi, and your light switch will have Wi-Fi, and your door lock will have Wi-Fi, and your garage door will have Wi-Fi. And the Internet of Things fundamentally changes how we function as humans, right? Like we'll put something that's a slow cook thing that needs to be cooked for 5 hours. We'll put it in the oven, we'll program it, and through our phone while we're at work, we can see what the temperature of the food is and where the oven is. And somebody from Amazon can safely open your garage, drop off the package, close the garage, all through the magic of the Internet of Things, okay? And the Internet of Things, we no longer see it as, wow, that's a new thing. No, it's here. It's ubiquitous. My car has Wi-Fi. When I go into the website, my GMC, whatever, I can see the stats of how fast I've gone, where my engine oil is. It's the Internet of Things. Everything is the Internet of Things. And we've forgotten that to be as like it was a product. Now it's a feature. That's the point I want to make. Like it's standard, it's table stakes for any electronic that you buy to have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I mean, even my blood sugar monitor, okay, which I'm not diabetic, at least not yet, but I'm monitoring my sugar for health reasons or whatever. That's connected to my phone and it's connected to the cloud. And my doctor, my subscription doctor, monitors my sugar and tells me, Hector, these peaks, this, that, what were you eating? And then we'll kind of like regulate our diet with that. It's so ubiquitous. It's no longer amazing. It's just normal. And I think this is what's going to happen is AI will be a table stake. And we will no longer see AI as a product. We'll see it as a feature, as a standard feature. What are your thoughts about that? And this was your idea, actually. So
no, you did a great job explaining it. And so I won't add much. Just to say that my hair is grayer than yours, Hector. So the example that I usually use is there was a time, and I don't know if you might not even remember. There was a time, Hector, when it was an important thing to know your TCP/IP address for your computer. Like that used to be an important thing, and now you've got it's not, and you've got TCP/IP addresses across your entire household, and no, it doesn't matter, right? So because it's built in, as you said, it's now become built in. We don't talk about it anymore because it's just built in.
I'm happy to announce that I do remember TCP/IP addresses, and I was a network administrator when I was 15 years old, so I know this stuff very well. Okay, anyway. We'll move off the nerdiness. So, Ed, since you are the meta consultant, since you've been doing consulting work and writing about consulting work and teaching people about consulting work, there are two pieces of really important frameworks for accountants and consultants that I learned from you. So I would love for you to kind of like walk us through these two really important frameworks. This is like how we think about consulting, how we put together engagements, how we talk to our clients about it, and essentially, what sets the pace and the mood and the expectation about what our role as a consultant is. And then maybe we'll discuss how AI could change these like really old and tried and true fundamental frameworks. So, tell us about it.
Sure, and I'm glad you started with this one, Hector. This Ford model, which stands for findings, observations, recommendations, decisions. I happen to own a Honda and a Tesla, so I'm not a Ford guy. It has nothing to do with the car. But what I can say is, Hector, if you go back into ChatGPT, it uses the Ford model. I mean, here's what I found. Like when you were here, the first thing is that you uploaded. Okay, here's what I found. Then here are some options for that you could possibly do. And then what it didn't do is it didn't necessarily make the recommendation. You asked it for the recommendation afterwards when you said, hey, give me some questions.
Yep.
But the recommendation piece, this is what's going to begin to separate us from the bots. The recommendations are still going to require some kind of sentience, some kind of what the term I like to use is discernment. And then the decision has to be made by a human being regardless. We're not going to turn the decision over to the bot. Maybe it's going to enhance our decision. Maybe it's going to help us with a better recommendation, a listing of perhaps the pros and cons of each side. But ultimately, it's going to be is going to have to be a human that makes that final decision, and that's what's going to separate us. We're not going to. I don't think, Hector. I don't want to turn over decisions to the bots just yet. I mean, maybe some at some point, but this is where as you said earlier, human creativity is never going to be replaced by bots. It's just a bunch of nested if statements. It's just statistics.
And it's important to point out that the Ford model wasn't built by AI; it was built by a human. So,
right.
So we could be amazed by the fact that AI can now do the Ford model, the findings, observations, recommendations, and decisions workflow for structuring a consulting engagement. But it was a human that built this. It was a human that built this, right? So ChatGPT is essentially just utilizing our creativity. So the next thing that replaces the Ford model won't be done by AI. It will be done by a human watching that AI can now replace, a previous framework, and then what does this framework look like with AI? So let's just go through it really quick because I love the Ford model. So Ford model is findings. So you can have an engagement where you're just being paid to find information, to collect information. That's all you're doing as a consultant. You're doing that. So and also it could be a phase. So like if you have a structured consulting engagement that's going to go through 4 months, and you're going to say, look, month 1, we're going to do this. Month 2, we'll do this. Month 3, we'll do this. Month 4, we'll do this, to help us also get acclimated with the data, understand the business. So this could be done either by picking one of these as a limitation of the what you will do as an accountant or consultant, or it could be done to structure sort of a multi-phase model. So before I get into that, Ed, is that correct, or is that?
Yes, and again, so one of the things that I think is important for a consultant to do is identify which level, I call this consulting levels, which level of thinking does the customer want you to apply in this particular situation. They might only want you to do findings. That's what they almost just here, come in, ask me a bunch of questions, tell me what you found. Or they might want you to do findings and give me some options for what I can do to correct some of this stuff, and maybe perhaps even give me your recommendation for what I should do. But ultimately, it's my decision. In fact, Hector, one of the things that I think is important, as I define a consultant does not make decisions. But there's a separate thing for that. You can do this, like the CFO, the outsourced CFO folks who are truly making decisions on behalf of a customer. That's not a consultant anymore. That's an outsourced CFO.
We could also use Peter Block's. We could use Peter Block's concepts of pair of hands and collaborative to discuss that.
All of those things. Yeah.
We'll step into that.
Yeah. So, but the last thing I would say, what you want to identify, what level does this prospect or customer want from you? Because if they want just findings and you give them a recommendation, they're not going to be happy with you. You're like, wait a minute, you've overstepped your bounds. If they wanted a recommendation and all you give them is findings, they're not going to be happy because they're like, well, you were supposed to tell me more what to do. So I think asking the question, what level of thinking do you want me to apply here up front, early on, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of walking through what, like, since you brought it up, ChatGPT is basically structuring the consulting engagement for us. It goes, if you're just doing findings or you're just in the phase of findings, then you would do something like analyze the historical financial statements, review our current operational models and workflows, assess market positioning, competitive landscape, identify key financial ratios, and it even gives you some of the questions you can start asking, right, as a consultant, because it's all about the questions. What are the main financial trends over the past 2 years? What are the critical operational challenges faced by the business? How does Quality Build compare to its competitors? And then we go to phase 2, or a higher level of engagement, which is observations. And then it gives you other set of tasks. So, actually highlight the trends in revenue. So we're going into more detailed sort of approach, and we're highlighting trends in revenue, trends in expenses, trends in profitabilities, identifying the strengths of the business operations and marketing strategy, pointing out weaknesses and inefficiencies or potential risk, observe market opportunities. And then there's more questions to ask in this level of engagement. What are the primary revenue drivers and cost centers? What are the operational processes that are working well? Which ones are not? So you can see ChatGPT actually guided you through this model pretty well, or even in this case, contextually, it guided the business owner through, how do they think about hiring someone to give them advice through their business. And they could even go this route and even say, come in here and, like, as I mentioned before, select one of these questions and click saying, let's dive deeper into this. Or, as you can see on the screen, it went through an entire implementation plan of your consulting engagement. So week 1 and week 2, it tells you exactly what you can do. Week 3 and week 4, exactly what you can do. Week 5 and week 6. And by the way, here we go. We even have, and it's really cool. ChatGPT even thought about ongoing support. It knows contextually that you're not just going to implement a new thing. You have to make sure that it stays. It would have been cool if they would have, offered a sort of subscription advisor model afterwards.
No, but it would have been cool. And that's the point, Hector. It's not creative, right? That's the thing. That's a great point.
Okay. So let's move on through that. And by the way, I know a lot of people are looking at what's happening on the screen with ChatGPT, and they're like, oh, actually, you're turning it off too quickly. I want to read it. I am going to copy and paste the link of the chat. So in your own ChatGPT account, you can actually open it and see everything that we saw. You can download the P&L balance sheet that we posted up there. So you can actually see the stuff that we did. So I'll post it a little bit later as we get deeper into it. So we alluded to this about the concept of the surrogate manager. You're not a consultant anymore. If you are making decisions in behalf of your client,
right,
hopefully a good advisor, a good consultant gets to the point where they lay out all the trade-offs. Okay, these are all the things I would recommend. It's not just one. You've got 2 or 3, and what the trade-offs are, because there's no such thing as one single best decision. Like I've found it in life that there is a possibility where there's 2 paths you can take, and both paths are good paths. Both decisions are good decisions, and both will take me to the right place. But it will do it differently, and I'll be sacrificing some things in one and some things with the other. So maybe you could discuss trade-offs as well, Ed, because that's an area of expertise. But let's talk about Peter Block's model for your role as a consultant.
Sure, I will do that. But let me just put a bow on that last thought of yours, and that is to say, one of the things that I think is a meta consulting tenet is to recognize that there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. And that's, I think, is a big difference between what I'm talking about and what a lot of consulting is about. A lot of consulting is, well, this is the answer. And I don't believe in an answer. I believe in multiple answers. There's options that we're going to be able to take, and we have to try to discern again which is the best option for you and your organization in this particular case. So there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. But to your question about Peter Block, by the way, this is my Peter Block shelf right here. This is like, I think, all Peter Block right through there. Right behind my head. But one of the things that he talks about is this notion of trying to understanding the type of consulting role that your customer wants from you. And this is in addition to Ford, we also have to know, what are they looking for? Are they looking for an extra pair of hands? Are they looking for an expert, or are they looking for a collaborator? And this is a question that I strongly encourage everyone to ask of all prospects. And well, I'll get back to this in a second, but ask all prospects, which of these three terms best describes the type of relationship you would want with an outside consultant? Pair of hands, expert, collaborator. And I think getting that insight from the prospect is so critically important for two reasons. One, it's going to lead you down a path of how you're going to work with them. But more importantly, it begins to give you an opportunity to discern yourself what types of customers you are willing to work with. I've worked with an organization, Hector, that they will only work with people who say that they want collaborators. That, in other words, if the prospect says, "Hey, listen, we're looking for someone who's going to be an expert or a pair of hands," they're like, "Thanks, we appreciate being able to pitch to you, but we're not going to engage." Right. So they will only work with those because that's where they feel their strength is when they're in that collaborative role. And so another quick exercise that you can do for yourself is get your current customer list out and ask yourself this: put a one of these words next to each of your current customers, and what is the role that best describes your relationship with them right now. And then you can even ask yourself, and this is truly a consulting strategy question, is that what you want? Do you want to be the pair of hands? And if you've got 80% of your customers who are viewing you as a pair of hands and that's not what you want to be doing, well, then you got to change your marketing strategy, because you're just attracting people who are doing pair of hands stuff. So I think what I love about this notion of blocks is not only is it helpful in understanding the relationship with the individuals that you're working with, it's also a really important strategic question that each individual consulting and organization needs to ask itself.
And Ed, if we want to contextualize this maybe to the average small business CPA that just hasn't gotten to the level where that client is ready to discuss growth and strategy, and they're sort of stuck and always catching up with their messy books. Mm-hmm. You can think of pair of hands, expert, and collaborator even at that level. So for example, let's say, for example, you have a new client that comes in and says, "My books are a mess. I need help." Well, most accountants in their mind, when they hear that, they say, well, my role should be to go in there and clean the books, right? Because that's what they said. Books are a mess. I need help. But unfortunately, we jump straight to that solution. I know how to fix messy books. Therefore, what the customer is asking me to do is to clean their messy books. But even within that context, pair of hands, expert, and collaborator is different. So I'm gonna tell you how I understand it, and maybe you can correct me or just and me. Okay. So a pair of hands would be someone that says, "Mr. Customer, don't worry about it. Give me the QuickBooks file, give me the bank statements, give me the credit card statements, give me the invoices. I will clean these books." Okay. That's what a pair of hands is. Mm-hmm. The customer doesn't want to do any of the work. I will take the responsibility to doing all the work myself. That's what a pair of hands is. And that's what most of the times we mistakenly is the first thing that we offer. Mm-hmm. The second one is an expert. So an expert would say, "Mr. Customer, you're right. Those books are a mess. Would you like for me to sit down with you, do a full review, and then give you a report of all the things that you need to work on so you can clean your own books? You're counting on my experience. You're counting on my expertise. You're counting on my accounting prowess to point out what you need to do. And as an expert, I will give you my opinion about what the course of action could be." Now, you're still answering the question, my books are a mess, I need help. But it's two very different engagements, right? The amount
Yes.
of time involved from you, the consultant, from the client, is transforms depending on what you're offering. And then collaborator, that's the one I kind of struggle with because I find it kind of interesting. But for collaborator, I would say, Mr. Customer, we're going to have a plan in place. You're going to fix the books, but every week I'm going to log in and I'm going to act as your uh, temporary controller, temporary CFO, and I'll just verify that the work that your team is doing, it's doing correctly. If there's something that needs to be corrected, I will correct it with them. I will teach them. So we're both working together, and then I'll go report to you the progress of how that's going. So I just presented to you a paradigm shift to my books are a mess, please help me, where now it's three very different types of engagements. And I'm not saying one should be worth more than the other, but yes, but it's not always, but it's not always a pair of hands worth more than expert or collaborator. It's not always, the context matters. And what your client wants matters. If your client says, but I have a bank loan, and if I don't get it within the month, then they're not too worried about their own internal development and learning process of cleaning the books. They need you to put out that fire. Maybe they just need a pair of hands. But if they just hired an internal bookkeeper and the CFO is gone and they need 6 months for you to both get the bookkeeper prepped and serve as the virtual CFO, then a collaborator might be a better thing. If your client is pretty good at accounting and maybe your client's spouse has an accounting degree, they just don't understand QuickBooks or Sage or whatever, and they just say, can you just train us and guide us through the process so we can do it ourselves, so we can build internal knowledge, internal know-how to prevent this thing from happening in the future, then you're better off as an expert. So by us giving a but type answer, right? But I mean BOT, but type answer to say, hey, my books are broken. Can you help me? And we go, yeah, I'll clean it for you. We're doing the client a disservice. And as humans, as a human consultant, we got to step back and go, hey, Mr. Customer, I love the idea of having clean books, right? It's fundamental. Like you ask the right question, right? Can you help me get my books clean? But now I have to ask you, how would you like us to work with you on this? And this is how we are different than an AdvisorBot. Because if you tell an AdvisorBot, these are my books, they're messed up, can you help me? It will just start cleaning them for you. It'll start saying, okay, correct this, correct that, but not understand the context on how they want to work with you. So any thoughts on that? Did I miss the mark anywhere?
I'm not going to yes and you, Hector. I'm just going to say yes. Well done.
Okay, simple. so these are old, tried and true models for thinking about how to approach an engagement. Do you have any thoughts about how AI could change these? I think both of us look at these two things, and after you've gone through the presentation, you're like, you know what, these are perfect. Like, you're almost like they don't need any changing, right? The Ford model is kind of a beautiful way to phase out an engagement or look at it as different levels of work. And then the Peter Block's model is more of that personal, like, okay, how do you want me involved with you? You know, what is my role? I think these two models are just beautiful. They're perfect. But can they change? Are they susceptible to AI? You have any thoughts on that?
I think that AI can be helpful. I think you demoed earlier that AI is already helpful from a Ford model perspective in giving you some enhanced detail. And certainly, as you said, if you give it even more context, it's going to be better and better and better at helping you. Like, hey, these are some maybe things that you need to be looking for. And there are lots of questions rolling in, Hector. I just want to let people know that we will be doing questions next, right? So, so yes, we will get to all of them. So I think AI is going to transform these. Yes, but it's going to be enhancement in what we already know. For example, the pair of hands stuff is probably the first thing that AI will be able to quote, you'll be able to take, here's the messy data, go and fix it. And it's just going to do it. So
yeah, there will be software, there will be AI applications that will do 80% of the pair of hands work.
Right. Right. Well, and look, as a personal QuickBook user, I know that it's already there to a certain extent because I get an American Express bill in that's connected to my QuickBooks. Once I tell it that if I buy something from Staples, it's office supplies, and from now on it's going to office supplies.
Yeah.
So,
In many ways, your QuickBooks or Xero or Sage bank feeds, it's a pair of hands. It's
it's a
already
pair of
a pair of
hands. That's right.
hands.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk about the continuous audit and the promise of the continuous audit. So this is, I would say, like when blockchain came out, there was a really big deal about how blockchain can change accounting, and it never really like sort of clicked. It almost felt like it could get there, but it didn't get there. But it doesn't mean that it won't get there. Where blockchain could replace the GL anyway. But this is other concept of the continuous audit. So to draw some contrast here, right? An audit is when a bunch of humans go into a company and they look at their historical financial statements and do tests to certain accounts and certain data sets and try to determine whether or not these numbers are 95 to 99% accurate and there isn't a material misstatement. So there's a human making a judgment on whether or not the internally prepared financial statements are done, as close to accurate as possible and fairly prepared. So outside investors or management looks at the financial statements and it's a good baseline set of numbers. Now, continuous audit, or the promise of it, is when AI or AI-enabled software will start doing the real-time data collection, the real-time data analysis, will be potentially making automated adjustments. We'll be making proactive risk management and compliance, not necessarily decisions, but suggestions. It will be flagging statistical anomalies. One person from the chat wrote, how can ChatGPT help with audit? And I say, well, in real time, it will flag statistical anomalies in real time. So even QuickBooks right now is experimenting, and some people have this. This is being tested, where when they create an invoice and you've never invoiced that dollar amount or close to that dollar amount before, or you never invoiced that customer that much, or you never sold that many of that unit, so many of those units, it will flag you and say, hey, by the way, this is strange. Like you've never done this before. And in accounting, that sometimes we'll miss a zero or we'll miss a decimal point or whatever. So in real time, as people are booking transactions or before they book the transaction or before they misquote the customer or whatever, these systems are going to tell you these things in real time. Could you go back and think about all your clients and how many times they misquoted a price, right? Where their salesperson underpriced something or overpriced something. So if they underpriced it, they sell it and they lost money. And if they overpriced it, they didn't get the sale. And they only realize that stuff in arrears, and then you can't go back and fix it. So these continuous audits are going to, in real time, be giving feedback to the humans as they're transacting day to day. And the most important thing is one-click scalability. The way computing is moving to, making a major decision about an IT system or about adding more users, removing more users, adding controls, will no longer be an entire infrastructure investment. It will be a one-click thing where instead of paying $1,000 a month to your IT provider, you pay $1,200 a month, and all of a sudden we have open capacity. So any thoughts, Ed, on the continuous audit?
Yes. So you did a great job explaining like the statistical anomalies that it's going to be able to flag, but also things like fraud detection, where you have, I think it's called sum of the first digits, Hector, where like you want to see a nice pattern in the numbers that are the leftmost in any number. You should, by definition, see more ones than nines the further you go to the left. So, because if you really think about it, if you transact and most of your transactions are in the thousands of dollars, you should see some that are 10,000, but there shouldn't be a lot of them that are, and there shouldn't be a balance. And that's one of the ways that fraud is detected, is by looking at those things. And it's just going to be happening in the background. That's something that a lot of auditors had to come in and do as a separate test completely. Now it's just part of the process. It's just built into the way it looks at the data model.
And I think that the continuous audit might be relabeled or rebranded as a meta audit, right? Because it's the audit within the audit, right?
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
happening in real time. It's all using the data of the data. It's using its own real-time data to sort of audit. So it's not just auditing the past, it's auditing the present, right? And it's so I think the meta audit will be a thing, which is a great segue to discuss what meta means to us. So if you actually even ask ChatGPT, what does meta mean, right? Or you Google, what does meta mean? What kind of answers you're going to get? Well, self-referential, right? So it's when it's about it's something you're talking about a thing that's about the thing, right? Where the subject of conversation is the same concept as sort of talking about itself. So self-referential. Meta could also mean at a higher level. So sort of above the standard intellectual surface, like things that are happening with deep thinking beyond, or things that maybe are happening in your subconscious. And like I think AI does a lot of meta because it has so much data. AI basically is the largest database of data that it uses data to compare against data to then figure out what data to give back to you, or what information to give back to you. Meta also means beyond or transcending, right? So it means like not just the present, but like what the present means in terms of the future, and multiple layers of present and some philosophical concepts like that. And also meta means contextual, so it means it's something about itself. So a meta movie would be a movie about movies, right? Or meta knowledge would be knowledge about knowledge. And I think Ed, you said an example. What was the example you said earlier? Was it meta knowledge, or was it a meta information? What was it?
Well, metadata is data about
Metadata.
the data. Is
Data
data about the data.
about data.
And I just want a quick shout out to James. And yes, Bedford's Law, Benford's Law, BENFORDS is the name of that, some of the first digit stuff. So thanks for the reminder. Couldn't pick that out, but yes, thank you, James.
What is Benford's Law? Could you?
So it is the statistic that you should see in any series of numbers. You should see more ones in the first position, and this is doing with usually financial analysis. You should see more ones in the leftmost position, than you see nines, right?
All right, so that's one of the ways that AI can apply.
That's right.
Anomaly.
So
yeah.
Right. So you shouldn't see an even number across it. If you when it's even like that, that it's being given a random sample of numbers and not real.
So I want to ask you about meta consulting, Ed, and I want to tell you, when you first told me, Hector, I want to explain to you this concept that I've been sort of building over time. When I heard meta consulting, and you told me consulting about consulting, and I'm thinking, as a consultant myself, a lot of the work that I do is to help my clients suggest better things to their team. Like not in not that many engagements, I'm the one making the decision about what every team member should do. Generally, I am the one helping the leader lead their team through change. So I think about meta consulting like helping your clients, just a concept, helping your clients or helping the client think about their thinking process. And I think that's kind of maybe what you meant by that a little bit. I just had to make a quick. So helping your clients to think about their thinking process. What are your thoughts on that?
Think how they think. Like how is it you can help them to think better? And this goes back to asking better questions, so that they begin to learn how to discern, how to ask themselves better questions. I think one of the most beautiful things about being a consultant, and then hence a meta consultant, is that you get to be the model for behavior. One of the things I like to talk about is what you want to do is a consultant should have like almost even a mystical and magical power that happens. So even in a company where they never start on time, they're completely disorganized. But if you're running a meeting for that customer, the meeting should start on time. There should be an agenda, because you want to be the model for behavior. I would change the second one, Hector, to help them to strategize about their strategy, not strategic planning. Strategic planning is a different thing. Let me give an example of strategy as opposed to strategic planning. So a strategy is to say, I am going to go after people who only want me to be a collaborator. That would be a strategy. That's not a plan. And I think people oftentimes mix up strategy and strategic planning. Strategy can be and is usually relatively simple. It's just a sentence to say we're going to go after people who want collaborators. That's a strategy. So,
and the last one is helping a client to decide about the decision-making process.
That's right. Yes. So deciding how to decide. What's the framework for deciding? And in giving them those frameworks for making those decisions. Again, it's this model for behavior stuff. How are you the model for how things ought to be in their organization, and make them come up to your level, not reduce yourself to theirs.
And very much inspired by one of the podcasts you had with Ron Baker in the Soul of Enterprise. In the knowledge economy, we are all consultants now. We are all, when I say we, I don't mean accountants. I mean all humans. We are all consultants now, right? Our clients, the CEOs of small businesses and medium-sized businesses, are consultants themselves. They help their management team make better decisions about executing the strategy that they laid out. And then the management team consults their customer-facing team on how to better serve the customers. And the team itself, the team members, consult their customers on how to do things better in life and or business. And sometimes the team members client-facing are even consulting their customers how to better service their ultimate customers. So we are all consultants now. Ed, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, then to me, this is a line that I've used for a long time. Is if you want to understand the wonders of the free market system, you should not watch the movie Wall Street. You should instead watch the movie Pay It Forward, because the purpose of business is human flourishing, and the way we do this is by helping those that we serve to continue to flourish. So how can we, and business does this. Business is, I have to help my customer flourish. When I buy my soda bottle from Costco, they're helping me to flourish by providing me bottles of water so that I can drink them during webinars, right? So that it's pay it forward. It's oftentimes for anonymous, certainly people you don't know about in the future. So a lot of fun stuff there.
For sure. And we still have about 17 more minutes left. If anybody wants to post questions in the chat, or if you want to come up with voice or video in the live webinar, we'll lift you up and we can have an open conversation about this. Right before we do that, so go in the chat, go in the Q&A and say, hey, I want to ask a question live, or just ask your question and Ed and I will cover it. But we're excited to announce that Ed's built the Meta Consulting Academy. Ed, maybe you can discuss, what this is, and then maybe I'll talk about the details, the logistical details.
Yeah, the idea was born, Hector, from the work that I did at Sage, where I was helping people become better consultants. And what I also realized is that it was a transformational event. It's not something where we can just, and don't get me wrong, this webinar was great, and I think there's going to be some things that people can take from it for sure and implement. But if you really want to get better at this stuff, it requires a series of serial transformations of yourself and your organization. So I don't want the Meta Consulting to be just this one and done. Yes, there will be an educational component, but there also needs to be a longer term facilitation component. It's not about one and done. That's not what I'm about. I think that's really where this comes. So I want to be able to take people who have a high level of technical proficiency in whatever area, whether it's consulting, whether it's accounting, the law, whatever, and add the component of how they can become better consultants. So that's what we're launching. So if you want to give the details, by the way, I love the coupon code. Hector, that's hysterical.
yeah, exactly. So Meta Consulting Academy is Ed's thing, is Ed's baby. I'm not involved with it at all. But when he proposed what he was working on, then I proposed, hey, what if we brand it with my events management company, because this is very much aligned with what we're trying to do, is help the accounting profession move forward, and then we'll collaborate on this one. So this would be maybe the only time that Ed and I put this together, but Ed's going to bring his sort of mid-market, 20 years plus of experience helping accountants and ERP implementing experts do this type of work, consulting, advisory work, not just the accounting, but the consulting piece. And then I will bring in some of my insights on, the small business, the QuickBooks users, the bookkeepers and the tax preparers, of small businesses that I've been doing myself and working with folks. So we're gonna sort of merge the two worlds and put together this certified meta consultant level 1 2-day program. So this will be in Dallas. Thank you very much for ADP for they're going to provide space and they're going to provide food. So ADP is quote the sponsor, although we're not going to sell ADP or talk about ADP or other than thanking them. They're going to provide their sales office, which has about 30. It could be 28. It could be 35. I mean, it's the room itself. It's built for a good 2-day class for 30 people. Is in the Dallas, Texas ADP office. We'll send you all the details once it's out. Ed and I will both facilitate this. I will provide my CPE company, will provide a CPE. So if you're an accounting professional that needs CPE, you will have that. The inaugural price for this is $1,000, although Ed and I have discussed that this should probably be a lot more than that. But because it's the very first one, it's going to be baseline $1,000. And if people sign up by July 15th, we already have 12 people signed up. By 13 people, just had one this morning. 13 people sign up. So if by July 15th you want to be part of this, you can use the coupon code META, and you get a preferred price of $850. And the link is on the slides. I will put the link in the chat as well, because I know some people like chat. And what we'll start doing is we will start answering some of the questions that people have live. And again, if you want to come up voice and camera or whatever, we can do that. So I flooded the chat with the link of the place to sign up for the course. It will be in Dallas. It will be August 5th and 6th. We're contemplating going to a baseball game afterwards, so we'll figure it out with the crowd, see if they want to hang out and go to a Rangers game afterwards. I would say that's the social component of the event that we could potentially have. But it's 2-day program in Dallas. It's not online. It's not available. It won't for now. It's not an online event. Ed's Meta Consulting Academy is a combination of things. It's first, you got to be in person and you need to practice with other accounting professionals. So it needs to be an event. And because it's a Reframe, if you've been to a Reframe event, you know that it's all about the collaboration. It's about the creativity. It's about what we can build together. So some of these consulting workflows, the Ford model, the Peter Block's collaborator model, all this stuff will be discussed. And we're also going to discuss where AI comes to mind. Like, how does AI even affect this? And we'll kind of be a combination, or mostly be consulting frameworks and advisory frameworks, how to be a good consultant, how to be an advisor. But we will bring the AI element, because I haven't spent the past year and a half diving deep into AI, because I'm not going to ignore it. It is it's the elephant in the room that we have to continuously understand what role it will play. So the link is on the slides. The link is on the chat. Once we have 30, we will sell out. And this initial cohort, this thing's gonna be magical. It's gonna be great. I'm so excited about it. I don't travel that much, and this is the type of stuff that I really want to travel for. So, Ed, if you want to add anything, or we just go to the Q&A.
We can go to the Q&A, but just to address an issue for Michael. I don't envision ever this being completely online. I'm really of the belief that there has to be some component of it that is face to face with other human beings. As great as AI is and as great as online is, it cannot complete the experience that we can do online with this stuff. Now, that isn't to say that there can't be and won't be pieces of it that can be delivered online, especially for reinforcement of content. But there's certainly going to be some things that just can't be duplicated unless you get belly to belly with other people.
Right. Bottom line, if you want to be the first meta consultant, you will be in Dallas with us. Okay. All right. So there's some of the questions here. So there's some ChatGPT questions as well. So we'll start melding everything in.
Yep.
Tim Grant had a question, and I think this is a very interesting question, which is, we are all consultants now. Does that mean that only the most entertaining and attractive people will be followed? It seems so. That's a really interesting question, especially because maybe Tim is bringing in some of the aspects of the TikTok generation and the attention economy and all these things. What are your thoughts about that? Will only the most entertaining and attractive people be followed?
I think that there's some truth to that, but I also think that there's also an element of the people who are the ones who know the most about a particular topic. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be attractive per se. It can just be from a knowledge standpoint. Do they have the most knowledge on a particular area, particular topic? And yes, they're going to be followed. I also think that as human beings, we have the capability of discerning for ourselves what we think is important for others. And if we do that well, we'll all find a place to be a consultant. Yeah, I talk about, Hector, is you're a consultant if you're helping a friend pick out a new pair of shoes or a new golf club. You're a consultant, right? You have influence over them, but you're not going to make the decision for them. And all of the stuff that we talk about is going to be relevant in those particular cases. So
right. And just your example, if you're helping a friend buy a pair of shoes, you are not going to, go online and look at the shoes review and weigh in the price, and that's it. Like, you're not just going to make a straight, logical, reasonable decision. Like, you're going to suggest what shoes look best on that person, what
correct.
shoes will be most comfortable for that person, what shoes match the outfit and the events that person wants to use the shoe with.
Correct.
That's where we're consultants, because we're not just mathematically calculating the best option. We are tailoring our advice based on the context and the nuance of the things around the circumstances.
That's right. The word that I've said about a dozen times, discernment. I'm big on this idea of discernment. So
I agree. And also, I'm not a meta consultant yet. I will become one after doing the program with Ed. But Tim, as a practicing meta consultant, I would answer your question with another question. So Tim's question was, won't only the most entertaining and attractive people be followed? Well, entertaining and attractive means different things to different people. So I would ask you, what do you find entertaining? What do you find attractive? You know what I find entertaining? Someone that has a diverse group of someone that can discuss diverse topics and has different unpredictable opinions about different topics. That's attractive to me. Like, I find that to be an interesting person, that and this entertains me, seeing different points of view, watching people change their minds, watching people lay out their logic and watching somebody else lay out their logic and kind of see, where the minds meld or not. I find that very entertaining. It's intellectually entertaining. It's not maybe something that'll make me laugh or make me cry or whatever, but I have listened to podcasts in the past that have made me tear. And the podcast was about pricing. Like, I've been like, just, oh my God, I just had this deep realization about how I've been building my business and how I look at pricing and how I myself, add all the anxiety and my own personal history to assign a price to something that's very different on how the customer sees price. I have gotten teary-eyed listening to podcasts about pricing. So what I find entertaining, what I find attractive is going to be different. So Tim, you're 100% right. When you have a unique point of view, when you as a consultant and advisor has a unique point of view and you're consistent with that point of view and you go out in the public with that point of view, and the people that like that point of view, whether they agree or not, and by the way, you don't have to agree with someone to like listening to that point of view, that person will become attractive and entertaining for you. So the answer is yes. When you have a unique point of view and you put it out there, you will be that attractive, entertaining people that people would follow, and those will be your consulting and advisory clients eventually.
Yep.
Okay. I have a question from Sarita that says, how do you pros facilitating a balanced trade-off between utilizing ChatGPT as a tool, relying on it, versus exerting your own creativity? Are there any other tools that you recommend accountants to get the ball rolling? So my first take about this is ChatGPT is one tool, the most popular tool, the tool that everybody knows. But I think when it comes to AI, you should always have at least two tools. Let's call it two different points of view. So you can take a look at ChatGPT, you can take a look at Perplexity, you can take a look at Claude. Actually, I'm going to do a webinar in a couple of weeks in CP Academy about alternatives to ChatGPT. I'm going to discuss all the different things, because I think you probably should ask for two opinions, just like getting AI should always have a second opinion. That AI is not a single opinion. So you ask AI, what do you suggest about this? Get the information. Ask the other AI, what do you suggest about this? Get the information. Get one answer from one AI and paste it on the other AI and say, do you like this approach? And have the other AI critique what the other AI did and vice versa. And you will find yourself in this meta knowledge discovery process. Okay, you will find yourself in a very interesting, enlightening, intellectual rabbit hole of possibilities of how to think about the problem different. And that's one thing that AI can do really well. It can kickstart or jumpstart your thinking. So, Sarita, that's what I recommend is at least look at ChatGPT and Claude for now, like the two leading AIs, and ask them both different things. The other thing I would tell you is, don't take the information that ChatGPT gives you and then go and regurgitate it and paste that on an email. Like, use what ChatGPT give you as a framework, and then add your own flavor to it. Like ChatGPT will get you kickstarted. I am comfortable with you being an advisor and consultant that uses AI to do 90% of the work, but it's that last 10% that you put in that is actually 90% of the value. So it's just a shortcut. It's just a shortcut to get you to where eventually you were going to get to, but you have to add your own piece. So I think that's the answer to your question, Sarita. Any other questions you see, Ed?
I'm just looking. I don't see anything in the question panel. I'm just looking back. Someone asked, you said there'll be software to fix the accounting. How long before that's available? Some said that there might be something that was released by Digits. So I just wanted, do you have anything to comment on that, Hector?
Yeah. So different companies, Digits, Keeper, Zero, and maybe 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a software called Audit My Books that no longer exists, which is probably the OG when it comes to this. All these companies are already thinking about anomaly identification. They're thinking about suggestions on how to fix the books. And because they already have APIs to the GLs, we're very, very, we're a couple months, or probably a couple years away from not just the software itself suggesting what to fix, but you being able to say, thank you, click a button and say, fix it, and it will make the adjustments for you. So yeah, take a look at Zenith with a Z, take a look at Keeper, take a look at, this is within the context of QuickBooks. I don't know about the other systems. Take a look at Digits. All these software companies are already attacking the problem of automating the cleanup process. Although I still kind of feel that discernment aspect of, like just because somebody coded Starbucks as cost of goods sold, and your instincts say, well, that's not cost of goods sold. That's like, meals and entertainment. But, what if we add some discernment and realize that this company is reselling coffee at an event, and then they're paying Starbucks for the coffee, and then Starbucks is in fact cost of goods sold. So is that extra edge that the accountant can bring in to understand the context and go, you know what AI is suggesting to code this into like meals and entertainment or whatever, or meals, it's maybe not accurate. Maybe it was correctly cost of goods sold, or vice versa, depending on the context. So I think that us, the humans, we can add that additional flavor, and these systems are automated. They should just be suggesting things, not so much automatically adjusting things.
Yeah, because not all payments to lawyers, Hector, are necessarily for legal expenses. Just
correct. And then we now we have a historical court case in the state of New York that says otherwise. Well, if we don't have any more questions and people are not wanting to ask questions live, I think we've covered everything. So we'll do a countdown. Ed, do you want to add any last words?
Just want to thank you, Hector, for sharing your audience with me, and hope to see some of you in Dallas. Would make a suggestion that if you want to do fly in, either of the two Dallas airports, both Love Field and DFW, are kind of equidistant from where the ADP office is, so it really doesn't matter.
Awesome. Ed, thank you very much for everything you've done for the profession, or all the things that you've taught me over the years. It's an absolute honor to do a webinar with you. This might be one of the few webinars we've done together. And I'm so excited about teaching this thing with you and sharing this knowledge that you've put together for us. So,
and somebody just jumped in at the end, Hector. How do people get the slides? Both the slides and the recording are going to be made available, right? So
yeah. Well, as soon as the recording's done, I'll post it to YouTube. I'll email everybody that registered. a copy of the slides, all the links that we discussed, the ChatGPT history that we discussed, and a copy of the recording. So all that stuff will be emailed. Give me a few hours, maybe till the end of the day.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. See you on the next one.
Peace and courage.